It was a bright Saturday morning, and the weekend had finally arrived. I stood on my balcony, arranging my little collection of potted plants. The air was fresh, and the faint hum of traffic from the nearby street blended with the chirping of birds. As I was adjusting a small fern, the sound of a heavy truck reversing caught my attention. I leaned over the railing and saw a moving truck parked in front of the building. A woman, perhaps in her early 30s, was unloading boxes, her hair tied up in a loose bun. She looked slightly tired but determined. A small tabby cat peeked out from the open door of the truck, watching her every move. It didn't take long to realize that she was my new neighbor. I hadn't seen anyone move into the apartment next door in years. A wave of curiosity and excitement washed over me. I should go introduce myself, I thought, wiping my hands on my jeans. After all, who doesn't appreciate a friendly face when moving into a new place? I stepped out of my apartment feeling a mix of excitement and nervousness. Meeting new people always felt like opening a book. You never knew what kind of story you'd find. As I approached, she was bent over, struggling to lift a particularly large box. "Hi there," I called out, keeping my tone friendly but not too loud. She looked up, slightly startled, then smiled. "Oh, hello," she said, brushing a stray strand of hair from her face. "Looks like you've got your hands full," I said, gesturing to the stack of boxes near the truck. "I'm Sarah. I live right next door." Her smile widened a little. "Nice to meet you, Sarah. I'm Anna. Just moved here this morning." "Welcome to the neighborhood, Anna. Need any help with those boxes?" I asked. She hesitated for a moment, then nodded. "If it's not too much trouble, that'd be great. This one's heavier than it looks." I stepped closer and grabbed the box she'd been struggling with. It was heavier than I expected, but manageable. "No trouble at all," I assured her. As we walked toward her door, I could see a bit of the tension in her shoulders ease. "Thanks for offering to help," she said. "Moving can feel so overwhelming." "Been there," I replied with a chuckle. "The first day in a new place is always the hardest. But hey, it only gets better from here." We carried the boxes into her apartment one by one. The place was still in chaos. Half-unpacked bags on the floor, furniture pushed against the walls, and a few scattered decorations waiting to find their spots. Despite the mess, the apartment had a cozy vibe with sunlight streaming through the large windows. As I set the last box down near a small stack of books, Anna let out a breath of relief. "That's the last of it," she said, wiping her hands on her jeans. "I don't know how I would have managed all this alone." I smiled. "Well, now you don't have to. Moving is a team sport when you've got neighbors." Anna laughed softly, the kind of laugh that breaks the ice. "You're already making this move better than I expected." I glanced around the room. "Looks like you've got quite the setup here. Do you need help arranging anything? Or are you taking a break now?" She shook her head. "I think I'll take a break before diving into the rest of it. I've been at it since early morning." "Good idea," I said. "By the way, if you ever need anything, a cup of sugar or even directions around the area, just knock on my door." Her eyes lit up with gratitude. "Thanks, Sarah. That means a lot." Anna walked me to the door as we chatted a bit more. "So what's this neighborhood like?" she asked, leaning slightly against the doorframe. It's pretty quiet most of the time, I said, smiling. Good cafes, a park nearby, and friendly folks. Well, most of them anyway. She laughed. That sounds promising. I wasn't sure what to expect when I moved here. Where did you move from? Asked, curious. From the city center, she replied. I wanted a change of pace, somewhere less hectic. And this place just felt right when I saw it. Well, you've picked a good spot. The park's great for unwinding, and the bakery on the corner has the best cinnamon rolls, I added with a grin. Her face lit up. Cinnamon rolls are my weakness. I'll definitely have to check that out. You won't regret it, I said. Anyway, I should let you get some rest. Moving is no joke. Thanks again for helping, she said sincerely. It's nice to know I've got such a kind neighbor. I nodded. Anytime. And remember, my door's always open if you need anything. With that, I left her to settle in, feeling good about the start of what might become a new friendship. Later that afternoon, as I was finishing up some work at home, I received a text from Anna. It was simple but kind. Hey Sarah. I was thinking, if you're free, maybe you'd like to join me for a cup of tea sometime? I'm still getting settled, but I'd love to get to know you better. I smiled at the message. It felt good to know that she appreciated the help and wanted to connect more. I quickly typed out a response. I'd love that. How about tomorrow afternoon? I can bring over some snacks too. Her reply came almost instantly. Sounds perfect. See you then. The next day, I arrived at her apartment with a small bag of cookies I'd baked the night before. When Anna opened the door, she greeted me with a warm smile. Come on in, she said, ushering me inside. Her place was beginning to look more like home. She had unpacked a few things, and a few plants were placed on the windowsill, adding some life to the room. I set the cookies down on the coffee table and we sat on the couch with our cups of tea ready to chat. As we sipped our tea, the conversation flowed easily. We talked about our favorite hobbies, the places we'd lived, and what brought us to this particular neighborhood. She shared stories from her old city, while I told her about my experiences growing up in the area. It was clear that we had a lot in common, and before I knew it, we were both laughing over a funny incident I had at work last week. It felt good to connect with someone new, and I realized that sometimes the simplest gestures, a helping hand, an invitation for tea, could lead to meaningful conversations and even a new friendship. As the afternoon turned into evening, we continued to chat, the conversation growing more relaxed and comfortable. Anna shared that she had been feeling a bit homesick, having moved away from her family and friends, but she seemed more at ease now. I didn't expect to feel so welcome so quickly, she said, her eyes softening with gratitude. I nodded. I know what you mean. Moving to a new place can be overwhelming. But honestly, it doesn't take much to make a new place feel like home. Sometimes it's just about finding the right people. Anna smiled warmly. I'm glad I found you then. We talked more about our shared love for gardening, which turned into a mini tour of the small plants I had on my balcony. As we stood on the balcony, the setting sun painted the sky with shades of pink and orange. It felt peaceful, and I could tell Anna was enjoying the quiet moment. I've been thinking about starting my own little garden here, she said thoughtfully. Maybe you can help me pick out some plants. I'd love to, I replied. It'll be fun and we can swap gardening tips. The evening passed quickly, and before I knew it, the conversation had slowed down as we sat in contented silence. It was really nice meeting you today, Anna said, her voice sincere. Thanks for making this move feel so much easier. No problem at all, I replied. It's what neighbors do. I'm looking forward to seeing more of you around here. We exchanged a few more words before I headed back to my apartment, feeling good about the connection we'd made. I thought about how sometimes a simple act of kindness, a helping hand, a shared conversation, could turn a stranger into a friend, and how easy it was to create those connections when you took the time to reach out. The next few days flew by quickly, and Anna and I continued to keep in touch. We exchanged texts about local places to visit, funny stories about our day-to-day lives, and tips on how to make the most out of our tiny balconies. A few days later, she messaged me again, asking if I wanted to grab coffee at the local cafe. I met her there in the late afternoon, the sun casting a golden glow on the street as we sat at a small table outside. Over coffee, we talked about our work, dreams for the future, and a little about our families. She shared how much she missed her parents and the city she had left behind, while I told her stories about growing up in this neighborhood. It must have been hard to leave everything behind, I said, noticing a touch of sadness in her voice. Anna nodded slowly. It was. But it's also a chance for a fresh start. I'm starting to think I made the right choice. I'm glad to hear that, I said with a smile. Change is always tough, but it's also full of opportunities. She smiled back, her eyes lighting up with appreciation. I think you're right. And I'm really happy to have someone to talk to here. We sat for a while longer, enjoying the simple pleasure of a good conversation. I realized how much I appreciated these small moments, connecting with someone, sharing experiences, and building a relationship based on mutual kindness. As the evening started to settle in, we both agreed it was time to head home, but not before she invited me over again for another round of tea later in the week. We should definitely do this again, Anna said as we stood up to leave. I'm looking forward to it, I replied, feeling grateful for the friendship that was quietly blossoming between us. And as I walked back to my apartment, I thought about how a small gesture, a simple hello, a shared cup of tea, could build something lasting. It was a reminder that sometimes the best part of moving to a new place is meeting people who make it feel like home. A week passed, and things between Anna and I continued to grow more comfortable. Our tea sessions became a regular occurrence, and every time I visited, her apartment seemed to transform a little more into a home. New decorations appeared, the scent of freshly brewed coffee lingered in the air, and there were more plants, each one carefully chosen with our conversations about gardening in mind. One afternoon, as I was heading over for our usual meetup, I noticed a small note slipped under my door. It was from Anna. Hi Sarah, I've been working on something and wanted to surprise you. If you're free this evening, I'd love for you to come over around 7. I'll have something ready for us. I smiled, intrigued by the mystery. I quickly texted her back saying I'd be there. When I arrived at her apartment that evening, she greeted me with an excited grin. I'm so glad you could make it, she said. I've been wanting to thank you for all the help and kindness you've shown me, and I thought this would be the perfect way to do it. As I stepped inside, I was hit with the delicious smell of homemade food. The small dining table was set with 2 plates, each filled with a colorful dish I'd never seen before. I made us dinner, she said. I've been trying out some new recipes and I thought you'd like to try them. I was touched. This looks amazing. You didn't have to, but thank you. Anna smiled and gestured for me to sit down. It's my way of saying thank you for being such a great neighbor and friend. We spent the evening chatting, laughing, and enjoying the meal together. The food was delicious, and as we ate, our conversation drifted to deeper topics. Our childhood memories, what we were both passionate about, and what we hoped for in the future. As the night went on, I felt a sense of warmth and contentment. This wasn't just about being neighbors anymore. It felt like the start of a genuine friendship, one that was built on shared moments, support, and simple gestures of kindness. When the evening came to a close, we both agreed that we should do this more often. I'm really glad we met, Anna said as I stood to leave. I can already tell this place is starting to feel like home, and you've had a big part in making that happen. I smiled. The feeling's mutual. You've made it feel like home for me too. With that, we exchanged goodbyes, and as I walked back to my apartment, I felt a sense of fulfillment. Sometimes, life surprises you with the simplest but most meaningful connections, and this was one of those times.